Miss Evans was the kind of librarian who would understand about little sisters. "Hello, Beatrice," said Miss Evans. "Is this your little sister I've heard so much about?" Beezus wondered what Miss Evans had heard about Ramona. "Yes, this is Ramona," she said, and went on hesitantly. "And Miss Evans, I'm a bad girl," interrupted Ramona, smiling winningly at the librarian. "Oh, you are," said Miss Evans. "What did you do?" "I wrote in a book," said Ramona, not the least ashamed. "I wrote in purple crayon, and it will never, ever erase. Never, never, never." Embarrassed, Beezus handed Miss Evans Big Steve the steam shovel. "Mother gave me the money to pay for the damage," she explained. The librarian turned the pages of the book. "Well, you didn't miss a page, did you?" she finally said to Ramona. "No," said Ramona, pleased with herself, "and it will never, never—" "I'm awfully sorry," interrupted Beezus. "After this, I'll try to keep our library books where she can't reach them." Miss Evans consulted a file of little cards in a drawer. "Since every page in the book was damaged and the library can no longer use it, I'll have to ask you to pay for the whole book. I'm sorry, but this is the rule. It will cost $2.50. $2.50? What a lot of things that would have bought," Beezus reflected as she pulled 3 folded dollar bills out of her pocket and handed them to the librarian. Miss Evans put the money in a drawer and gave Beezus 50 cents in change. Then Miss Evans took a rubber stamp and stamped something inside the book. By twisting her head around, Beezus could see that the word was discarded. "There," Miss Evans said, pushing the book across the desk. "You have paid for it, so now it's yours." Beezus stared at the librarian. "You mean to keep?" "That's right," answered Miss Evans. Ramona grabbed the book. "It's mine. I told you it was mine." Then she turned to Beezus and said triumphantly, "You said people didn't buy books at the library, and now you just bought one." "Buying a book and paying for damage are not the same thing," Miss Evans pointed out to Ramona. Beezus could see that Ramona didn't care. The book was hers, wasn't it? It was paid for and she could keep it. And that's not fair, thought Beezus. Ramona shouldn't get her own way when she had been naughty. "But Miss Evans," protested Beezus, "if she spoils a book, she shouldn't get to keep it. Now every time she finds a book she likes, she will—" Beezus did not go on. She knew very well what Ramona would do, but she wasn't going to say it out loud in front of her. "I see what you mean," Miss Evans looked thoughtful. "Give me the book, Ramona," she said. Doubtfully, Ramona handed her the book. "Ramona, do you have a library card?" Miss Evans asked. Ramona shook her head. "Then Beezus must have taken the book out on her card," said Miss Evans. "So the book belongs to Beezus." "Why, of course. Why hadn't she thought of that before? It was her book, not Ramona's." "Oh, thank you," said Beezus gratefully, as Miss Evans handed the book to her. She could do anything she wanted with it. For once, Ramona didn't know what to say. She scowled and looked as if she were building up to a tantrum. "You've got to read it to me," she said at last. "Not unless I feel like it," said Beezus. "After all, it's my book." She couldn't resist adding, "That's not fair." Ramona looked as if she were about to howl. "It is too fair," said Beezus calmly. "And if you have a tantrum, I won't read to you at all." Suddenly, as if she had decided Beezus meant what she said, Ramona stopped scowling. "Okay," she said cheerfully. Beezus watched her carefully for a minute. Yes, she really was being agreeable, thought Beezus, with a great feeling of relief. And now that she did not have to read Big Steve unless she wanted to, Beezus felt she would not mind reading it once in a while. "Come on, Ramona," she said. "Maybe I'll have time to read to you before Father comes home." "Okay," said Ramona happily, as she took Beezus's hand. Miss Evans smiled at the girls as they started to leave. "Good luck, Beatrice," she said. Chapter 2. Beezus and Her Imagination. Beezus and Ramona both looked forward to Friday afternoons after school. Beezus, because she attended the art class in the recreation center in Glenwood Park. Ramona, because she was allowed to go to the park with Beezus and play in the sand pile until the class was over. This Friday, while Beezus held Ramona by the hand and waited for the traffic light to change from red to green, she thought how wonderful it would be to have an imagination like Ramona's. "Oh, you know Ramona. Her imagination runs away with her," Mother said, when Ramona made up a story about seeing a fire engine crash into a garbage truck. That was actually true. "That child has an imagination a mile long." The Quimby's grown-up friends remarked when Ramona sat in the middle of the living room floor in a plastic wading pool she had dragged up from the basement and pretended she was in a boat in the middle of the lake. "Did you ever see so much imagination in such a little girl?" the neighbors asked one another when Ramona hopped around the yard pretending she was the Easter Bunny. One spring day, Ramona had got lost because she started out to find the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. The rainbow had appeared to end in the park until she reached the park, but then it looked as if it ended behind the supermarket. When the police brought Ramona home, Father said, "Sometimes I think Ramona has too much imagination." Nobody, reflected Beezus, ever says anything about my imagination. Nobody at all. And she wished, more than anything, that she had imagination. How pleased Miss Robbins, the art teacher, would be with her if she had an imagination like Ramona's. Unfortunately, Beezus was not very good at painting. At least not the way Miss Robbins wanted boys and girls to paint. She wanted them to use their imagination and to feel free. Beezus still squirmed with embarrassment when she thought of her first painting, a picture of a dog with bow wow coming out of his mouth in a balloon. That actually sounds pretty cool, doesn't it?